Hello, everyone. I am Judith Miller Cruikshank, VP of Professional Development at the Project Management Institute of the Southern Caribbean chapter. Today's podcast, we have a guest, Mr. Mikey Thakur. We would have remembered him some time ago. He was our featured guest on our pilot episode. But today, he is here looking at a different topic, one that is somewhat, I would say, tongue in cheek. Audacity without arrogance. Bold leaders without ego. We would note that strong leaders are often the ones that deliver and are very decisive. However, Mikey, in your opinion, what would you say would be, how is this topic, how does it resonate with you? And how is this topic so apt? And why would you say audacity without arrogance is something important?
Well, Judith, thank you so much again for being part of this incredible program, this incredible series. Again, bringing so much value to the Caribbean because it's Caribbean centric. I really do appreciate that. And again, I really do. I'm humbled by you having me again, a returning guest on this podcast. Um, you know, leadership, different leadership creates pressures and exposures. That's a fact. Everything we do. Leaders do not get the luxury of perfect information, endless time, or risk-free decisions. We still don't have that. That's the perfect world doesn't exist. They must act, and they must act, and it requires an audacity to act. But the audacity to act must be tempered with humility. And without humility, it turns into arrogance. And that arrogance is one of the fastest ways to damage trust in a team. It distorts reporting lines, it weakens judgment, and it poisons the team culture, and by extension, an organization if not in check. Simply that. And this discussion we're going to have and talk about is we're going to focus on how leaders like myself, like you, and everybody else around who's listening to us make the hard calls. How did I make the hard calls? How did I move with conviction? How I still remain open enough to hear challenges, admit my errors, and adjust when reality prove them wrong. My sayings. So this is not about being soft, not about being strong without becoming dangerous. It's really about how I got to this point. And again, these are my lessons that I've come through and has worked for me and has worked to some extent with other people I've shared this with. So take that as a bill and use what I'm going to say to tweak and tailor to what you're doing and what you're doing in your stage in your career. Because not everything has a silver bullet or magic elixir. You gotta take pieces and make the best structure you can. Yeah.
So would you say bold leaders are the ones that not just are decisive, but challenge the status quo? I'm sure you would have done that some part in your career to get where you are. I mean, Mikey, you are the CEO of Zero Gravity and a very senior project manager. So would you say challenging the status quo and being bold, as it were, these are integral in being a leader?
Yes, 100%. It's not for the meek. That is for sure. You have you have to be able to be audacious. So I would say, what is audacity really? What is audacity for me? As I would explain, I say audacity is discipline and courage. Discipline, courage, the willingness to move when delay will do more damage than waiting. To decide without the perfect information. To trust myself and to own the weight of that decision. It's not speed for speed's sake. It's not for bravado or Mikey Thakur. It's not recklessness dressed as confidence. That's what audacity is. And arrogance is the opposite. Arrogance is confidence that has stopped listening, stopped looking. It's when
So
authority becomes
true.
allergic to correction. It's when the challenge is treated like an insult. You take it personal. It's
Allergic
when
to
we
correction.
need to
I
look.
like that.
It's when we need to look right and be stronger than the need to correct around us. And why this is important for us and such an important topic, and it's been featured on Project Management Institute, it's because we can all resonate to this. We can all attribute this. We can all recognize that projects do not fail only from technical mistakes, a
No, they do
bad
not.
drawing, a bad spec. They also fail from leadership distortion, from delayed decisions, overconfident calls, suppressed truths, the macho, the bravado, teams that no longer trust the room enough to speak in. And that's what this topic is about. It's about keeping courage without losing judgment.
So, what other attributes would you say does a bold leader have? Could a bold leader be quiet and reserved, somewhat introspective as well?
100%. I would say a leader has to be bold, but still be humble. And that's a tight line to walk. And it must be. Otherwise, this leader becomes dangerous. Boldness without humility may look strong for a while, but it weakens the decision environment around it that's being built. Humility keeps boldness accurate, it keeps it in check,
In
and it
check.
keeps truth in the room with your people.
So, what are some of the common myths that you would have come across in persons, or some of the misconceptions, as it were, with strong leadership? What are some of the misconceptions?
So understanding what it looks like, understanding what it doesn't look like. So for instance, what does arrogance look like in a construction project or in a real project that's working on and the ego and stuff like that? So you go to a meeting, no one pushes back. It polished reports, looks good, but when you go to site, it doesn't match up. So what's happening is not matching reality. It looks like when your people around you are staying quiet because they know the boss doesn't want to hear the truth. He doesn't want to hear that. He wants only agreement. And by the time that becomes visible on a project, it's too late. You're
That's a
paying for it.
serious red
You're paying for
flag.
it. It is. It is. So the cost of ego in project leadership is catastrophic. It really knows no end. Ego is expensive. It costs. It causes it distorts reporting. It weakens judgment. It drives away capable people. Creates false narrative. Creates false confidence. This it's not just hurting feelings. It damages performance of your team.
You said something just
So
now that I'd like to ask, if I may.
sure.
Confidence versus ego. What's the difference? A lot of us misinterpret confidence, and we are not quite sure what ego is. But what's the difference in your opinion?
Confidence alone is not enough. Confidence must be tempered with experience, knowledge, and clarity. Ego surpasses all that. You're confident and you have ego because you know what? I don't know what I know, but I want to do it.
I don't want to
That's
know, but
ego.
I want to do it. I'm gonna do it
That's
anyway.
so confidence tempered with knowledge, understanding, and clarity is what you're looking for in leaders. You know, that's important. You know, audacity makes the hard call. Arrogance makes the room afraid to question it.
Hmm. And on that note, have you ever seen or experienced a project that may have not performed as it should because the leadership became ego driven?
Huh, right here. Trust me. What you what you're looking at here is not I didn't this didn't show up today. This is some years of understanding the ills of my behavior and what I've done. I'm not proud of the stuff I've done in my past to where I got to where I am at. But it's a process and I'm learning every day and I'm improving myself every day. And I do fall back and I have pitfalls, but I understand that it's a process I'm going through. Yeah, of course. I because I was almost taught that way and conditioned to understand that's important, you know, having leaders around me who depended on that and operated in that form of fashion and then being rewarded for it. So like anything else, like any other thing, you know, if persons are being rewarded for that type of behavior, then if I want that reward, then I have to do the same thing. So yeah, for sure. Projects go awry when ego steps in because ego corrupts. Ego corrupts you and the people around you. It makes reality and the truth a chasm between it, and you cannot control the outcome. Then it's a roll of the dice, to be quite
So I'm
honest.
intrigued. Paint me a picture of an instance where you became ego driven because you just admitted, Judith, I am an ego driven person. So give me and paint a
was
picture.
was a very
Was?
eager
Oh,
person.
okay. I
Yes,
like that. I like
was
that.
was
So paint me a
yes.
picture where
So
it interfered with your leadership.
without calling names, without being specific to there's so many instances I can refer to. I gotta find one
Wow.
that's podcast ready, you know. um being a surveyor back in the day, you know, and doing surveying, I could do no wrong. I was the best surveyor there was because my work proved itself. So when um, a mistake took place and it cost us a lot of money it cost us. Eagle stepped in and said, "You can cover it up. You can hide this. No one's gonna know." Right? And And the accident, the reason for the error was ego. I was so confident, I knew everything. No one could correct me. And that cost a lot of money and caused me to make a mistake in the surveying. So the equipment was in the wrong spot during drilling. And we lost a day's production basically. And I could have moved on and no one know the better. So I didn't do that though. I actually summoned up the courage to go to the project manager and say, hey, I got something to say to you. I made a mistake with the survey and, blah, blah, blah. And this was going to cost us and everything else. And the PM, he's the one who actually promoted me to be, later on. He stopped for a second, looked at me long and hard, and he says to me, and I never forget the words he told me, really. He says, you're finally grown up.
Oh my.
You are the person I knew you could be. You've made that mistake and you come in here and you've accepted it. And I can accept that because it's the price I'm willing to pay for you to go forward. And he called the superintendent in and he told the superintendent, I'm going to call the name and said, he's finally grown up. Give him a hug. In tears because
that
again,
was a humbling experience for you, would you say?
oh, it was very much. And it was more so humbling because of the response I got from these guys. And that's really when I started thinking to myself, I'm not infallible. I can make mistakes and put ego in check. And that's a, person who's going to hear this will know who they are, know what I'm talking about. And we joke about it now. If we talk about it, at one time I got in there, because at one time I really was to tears almost because, I had this ego about me and to do everything right. And it's Mikey Thacker and it's Mikey Thacker and the brand Mikey Thacker can do no wrong. So going in there and doing that was a tough one. And ego drove that error because I didn't want to listen to anybody else. I was always right.
Wow, Mikey. So, Mikey, you said and expounded, and very articulately so on how ego could be somewhat humbling, but I want to ask more so, how could you be audacious without being arrogant? Isn't there like a fine line? And how did you come across this? And how were you able to counteract it?
Right. So the difference between audacity and arrogance, as I mentioned before, it's a fine line. You're very correct, right? But you need to ride that lightning, as you might say. And audacity is the courage to decide and to move, to be able to not stand still. And arrogance is a refusal to be challenged while doing it. Because, okay, we're going to move forward because I have the audacity to move forward. And I'm going to do it because this is what I know. And arrogance tells you that I will not be challenged in that decision. And that's where the problem lies in. Because audacity says, I must act and I will own it. And arrogance says, I don't need your input. I don't care what you says. I'm creating momentum. I'm going to go. So one creates momentum or one silences it. And that's the line you got to understand that audacity, the courage to act, yes. Arrogance is a refusal to listen even though you're acting.
And where does accountability lie? Where does that come into?
So you have to take accountability. You must take accountability for what you do. If you don't do that, then you're going to be that person that no one comes to because they know if they come to you, it's somebody else's. You're going to be Teflon done. Nothing is your responsibility. It's always somebody else around you. It's never you because you're clean and you're going to find a way to manipulate and change it. And it's somebody else because they didn't send the email on time. They didn't pull the trigger. They didn't decide. They were late. It's always somebody else's but your own. And that's a sign of a weak leadership. That's you trying to find, people to blame. No, take ownership, create that avenue for dissent. Make it safe people to raise bad news around you. And own your mistakes early enough, like I said, not early enough.
So I want to take a shift, Mikey. I want to look now with a Caribbean lens on leadership. What are the strengths? Such as, do you see resilience, stability, or being connected to the people as attributes of Caribbean leaders? Do you see that?
Absolutely. I think we as Caribbean people and Caribbean have I would say a one up because we're grown tough. We know what tough is because we grow tough. I mean, the islands, they make you tough because we don't have the access to everything that we need. I mean,
That is so true.
you fall down, bruise your knees, a kiss from grandma, and you move on. There's no rushing you to a first care center and plan this. No, we know what tough is. So in construction and in projects in general in the Caribbean, it demands that courage. It demands decisions be made often, but be made with information available to us. The first truth is, leaders are rarely choosing between neat options and complete fast. That's a fact. They're always doing it with under pressure, partial drawings, partial information, shifting conditions, manpower issues, supply deliveries uncertainty,
Boy, you
commercial
said it.
consequences, like you said, always bring down your neck. And that's where audacity begins. Accepting that and say, yeah, I'm going to decide. That's me. I'm going to decide. The willingness to decide when the picture is incomplete based on my experience and my knowledge. But that doesn't mean being careless, though. It doesn't mean careless guessing. You're making calculated guessing based on your experience and recognizing patterns. And understanding that waiting for certainty is more costly than performing. So it's like a more polite form of avoidance, uncertainty,
More polite form of
So,
avoidance.
yeah. And audacity is not recklessness. Trust me, I'm not saying it's recklessness. I'm saying it's a willingness to decide and to move forward and carry on responsibility. And that's a distinction that matters to many people, and they confuse it between, like you said, old leadership and noise. Audacity is not shouting out and having swagger, dramatic speeches in the office, and going through and having, it's not that. It's making that call when the team needs you to step up and make that call because they're behind you, right? They need direction. I need to know if you move forward, you got their back, that you're going to set that responsibility. Don't be like, well, yeah, I told them, but they could have. No, that's not what we're talking about. Recklessness throws people into motion without respecting the risk. So understand the risk. Audacity moves decisively, but respect still wins. Facts and consequences still matter, and more so the people who must execute the work. That's important for that. And arrogance. Yeah, you asked me a question before, and if I have to answer it, arrogance begins when confidence no longer makes room for challenge. Simple as that. Judith. It's when arrogance steps in the room, and it's confidence has no place there. It no longer makes room for challenges. And that's the line right there. That's the line between a confident leader and an arrogant leader. A confident leader can still hear bad news. Yeah, it's bad news. An arrogant one doesn't want to hear it.
That
A
is so
confident leader,
interesting.
yeah, a confident leader can be challenged without feeling threatened to the guys. An arrogant leader reads every question and challenge as disrespect. Oh, you disrespecting me, That's the line that's fine to cross. And that's where project starts losing intelligence when people can't say what they need to say. Engineers stop pressuring the issue, the account stop calling you, the foreman stop raising concerns, the driver doesn't even call you anymore because he's afraid. The QS and the commercial guys stop they start softening the truth around you because they don't want to say we lost. Well, we're looking okay, but if we and the project may look strongly led on paper, but the reality is coming up hard.
So you said something a while back, and you mentioned, and you kept saying, something that was very, very, that hit home. Confidence. How is confidence perceived within the Caribbean region? How is it viewed in the Caribbean region, in your opinion?
Confidence can sometimes be now you have to understand your team, and teams be built together, right? There are five stages of forming a team, right? And what may be seen as confidence to one team may be seen as arrogance to another team if they don't know you and they don't respond. And if you haven't put the rails in place and they understand that you're speaking from a point of authority because you've done that, been there, and you're not just being confident in what you're saying, but you're confident enough to allow questioning. It's not just saying, do as I say, not as I do. It's do as I say, but I want to hear your input. That's the key to understanding confidence and being confident in the Caribbean. So yeah, we've all been there, we've all done that. And I want to hear what you've done. Mm-hmm. And understanding to that, and respecting your team and have their back is important also. Yeah.
Okay. And were there any leadership lessons that you can point to with a Caribbean perspective? Any lessons learned that you can probably share with us?
I'll give you a few already. I don't want to go too much. I'll start crying here. The best leaders are bold enough to act and humble enough to listen, disciplined enough to correct your course of action without treating that correction as weakness. That's an important thing. It's not that you're weak. It's a sign of strength that you are correcting. It means that I've recognized that there's possibly a mistake. My team has led me, and it's that you know what people say, I told you so. I told you those
Wow,
are
yeah.
really tough. You don't want those. And it's a lesson I've learned, and I've told my teams this many times, right? If you supposedly, and this is a fable, it's a urban legend, urban myth. So a guy goes to work in a machine shop in the morning, right? And he is going to the machine shop, and there's a puddle of oil on the ground, but he sees it, right? And he steps over it, does nothing, and continues on his day. So lunchtime, he goes in for lunch when everybody's here now, and there's a talk on the lunch counters like, "Hey, did you know Jack fell this morning and broke his back?" "Yeah, he slipped on a puddle of oil." "What do you do? Do you keep quiet and take it to the grave, or do you say, I saw the oil this morning?" And then first question will be, "What did you do?" I never want that on my teams. I never want that. See something, say something.
See
It's important
something,
to
say
create that
something.
environment.
So,
100%.
Mikey, how do you build as a mentor? How do you build bold leaders? What does that look like? What type of infrastructure needs to be set for a leader to be bold?
So it starts up with you. They have to see because they're gonna learn from you. It's like a kid and a parent. They copy what you're gonna do. They're
Mm-hmm.
looking at what you're saying. Even when you're not looking, they are looking. They understand what's going on. I see how you communicate, how you treat people, and the person that you say versus the person that is actually in the field or doing the work. Because sometimes we go to these webinars, we go to these meetings, and we hear them talking like, "Who the hell is that guy?" Because that not the guy on site. Because the guy on site is a complete tyrant. I used to be that guy. Trust me. So understand that they're gonna follow what you say, and don't just talk it, action it. That's important. A skeptic is also gonna be a skeptic because if you don't do as you say, they don't trust you. And it's obvious. It's rare in practice and it's difficult to do, but it takes work. Nothing comes easy being leader. That's why we said before, heavy is the head that wears the crown. You have been given that authority, and with that authority comes responsibility, not just for the good, also for the bad. I say to my guys all the time, as a team, success is yours, failure is mine. I own that. That's me. I fail because I fail to give you proper instructions, directions, materials, and tools. That's my failure, not yours, because you acted. Right? I'm the leader for that. So own those failures. Those are yours. So success, that's all you guys. Yeah, 100% guys. Good job. Failure, that's on me. I need to correct. I need to shift because I'm the leader.
So you kept mentioning over and over about being keen and listening to your team. And that is another critical and important aspect of being a leader, listening. So how important would you say is listening to bold leadership?
So listening is, and we say listening as because we're taking information in, but listening could be many forms. It could be verbal, it could be written, it could be hand gestures, it could be frowns, it could be eyebrows, it could be looking away, rolling up the eyes. So
Nonverbal.
communicating, yes, communicating is very important. So if you have someone who's bold, you want to encourage that, but you also want to remind them that when you act, there's consequences. So when you're acting, make sure you can cash that check. Don't do stuff that you cannot take responsibility for or it's above your pay grade. I want you to punch above your weight, but don't punch so high that you fall over when you punch. When you punch, be on firm ground because I want you to punch higher than your weight. I need that because that's how we get leaders going forward. But don't be reckless with your punches. Don't let me just say flying and go around. Have your feet planted soundly. I need to understand the decision and the logics in your process and thinking so I can follow your pattern and see where you went wrong. But if it's about ego and just doing it because, no. So that's important. They're going to follow you. They're going to understand what's going on, know that they're looking and create the environment to encourage that and be like I told you, the team that, had the problem with the mix design and filling
Yeah,
the
the
mix up too much.
mixers.
Let them fail. Let that bold leader fail and understand, but don't let them fail to the point where they can't recover. Be there to pat them on the back. You made a mistake. Yeah. Learn from it. Don't repeat. Like we say in this business, right? To make an error is your God given right. Repeating is criminal.
Ah. So what would you say helps leaders and stay grounded and perhaps still be able to gain and retain the influence of their team?
So strong leadership is not about dominating the room. No, I wrote an article and you can go back and look at my my LinkedIn page. It's about If you go into a room and there's no shadow, then something's wrong because you're the smartest guy in the room. You're overpowering everybody else because you're the brightest star there is. Go into a room, and when you go in the room, you have multiple shadows because there are people who are smarter than you or brighter than you in some form or aspect. So the cleanest standard of all is if your strength leaves the team more hesitant, more silent, more politically correct, then your leadership is costing the project capacity. Production capacity is being lost. Again, as I explained this is important to understand. If your strength as a leader leaves the team hesitant, silent, or more politically careful when they speak, then your leadership is costing the project production capability. If your strength leaves the team clearer, more confident, more willing to raise their voice to be heard and the truth, then your leadership is adding capacity. And that's where real strength, real production takes place. It's when the team is sharpened, where it's not just shrink. And like you said, that's when iron sharpen iron.
Iron sharpens iron. Yes, Mikey. Definitely, definitely thought provoking. So I want to ask one or two, questions here. And I want you to just quickly tell me what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear it.
I'm not good at these questions. But I'll try.
All right, no problem. Fair enough. Fair enough. One word that defines great leadership. One word.
One word. That's a tough one. One word that defines great leadership. I would say humility.
I thought you would have said communication. That echoed throughout your entire discourse. You said that throughout communication, be it, verbally, non-verbally, communication. So that is quite interesting.
To allow for communication, you have to have humility. That cup must be empty.
Wow.
The only way you can receive is if the cup is empty, right? So I always tell people, when you are anywhere, be humble and always speak from a point of trying to understand. So that cup you have, your experience, your knowledge, put it out, listen, and take it from there. So humility, I think, it's a key for leadership. And it's the humble servant, right? That's been there for a long time, being a humble servant. So I say great leadership is being humble, but not taken away from the other tools. Being bold, being audacious, those are tools used, but being humble is important.
Now, with being a little reflective, not necessarily on you, but again, we're still having that lens of imparting knowledge and mentoring to someone. What would you say is a bad, or in terms of arrogance, what would you say is a bad or an arrogant leader? What is an attribute of an arrogant leader? And is ambition bad?
Yes, it's an arrogant leader is, and we had touched on it before, is someone who doesn't like to hear the truth, doesn't create an environment for communication, and who is detached from reality, despite the obvious being in front of them.
So their biggest mistake is being detached from reality and not listening or communicating effectively.
Correct. I would say that's what it be. Yes, correct. Because arrogance is taking place of all that. Because I know everything. I don't need to. I'm gonna fix this, despite the fact that it's raining on you. It's raining on you. Like, no, it's just a drizzle. No, it's not drizzle. It's monsoon.
And what does leadership success look like? You're still you're still imparting knowledge. You're still mentoring. You are for most, a very successful leader. But letting them know at this point, what does a successful leader look like? What does success look like to you?
Now, again, and I will say this without say it openly. This person you see now and who's written that book and has this writing and writes on leadership is someone who has evolved from pretty bad way of leading, the exact opposite of what you see right now, the exact opposite. So it's easy for me to draw on that and say, my returns back then versus my returns now, it's night and day different. The way I feel, the way I communicate is much better. It's much easier. I feel more relaxed than before. It was very tense. Bold leadership makes the heart call, and arrogance makes the room afraid to question. Audacity moves you forward. Ego takes you off the road. Boldness, without humility, is just ego with a hard hat. That's all it is. Ego with a hard hat. If nobody can challenge you, your project's in trouble, and you are in trouble as a leader. You
You're
are
in
in
trouble
trouble.
as a leader.
And a good leader can make a hard call without making the team feel smaller. And that's a key thing, is to understand that team is important, because the team is the one who's going to fight for you. That's your army. They
That's
don't have
correct.
your back. You're in trouble. So a good
They make
leader
you look
can
good.
make that hard call. Exactly. They're the ones who are getting you up there. It's important. Um, Arrogance shrinks the room. Leadership strengthens it. It's the opposite. And ego is expensive, like we discussed before. It corrupts the truth before the outcome even gets there. You know, real authority, I say real authority, authentic leadership does not fear honest feedback. We welcome it. I welcome it. I welcome 360 reviews. I regularly do 360 anonymous reviews, because I need to understand, what am I saying? How is being interpreted? Because I am talking to you, right? But I'm depending on your feedback, the way you look at me, the questions you ask, to know if I'm landing or not. That's important. Not just say it, but look at the feedback to understand, is it hitting home? Have I missed the target completely? And the small cues, I'm being recognizing that, because you have your team all day with you. You know, the
But
strongest
sometimes,
leader. Sorry, go ahead.
sorry, but sometimes you can take it personally. Sometimes your team can make or point out something that, you take umbrage to, and it's a personal dig. And, how
And
do you deal with that?
so, and again, I am a firm, people say leave emotions at the door. No, I harness my emotions. Emotions is a strength. I don't shy away from that. So if it bothered me that much, I'd hurt that and it cut so deep, then something's wrong, Mikey. You need to fix that. You need to go see what's going on, because the fact that it's bothering you, you're not authentic to yourself. You'll have that ego is still checking there. That ego is still in there. Beat that ego down, manage it, because you're being told something. No, not everything said to you is to uplift you. Not everything at all. But having that tacit leadership skill to understand what is constructive and what is destructive. Taking what is constructive and building on that, and what's destructive, figure out, why is that being said? Why is that person saying something not to uplift or help, but to
Right.
destroy me? Maybe I pissed them off. Maybe I said something. Maybe it was an email I said 10 days ago, whatever. What's the reason? I really try to find that. And like you said, time is of the essence. I can't find time every single instance, but I try to. And the strongest leaders, they carry conviction without carrying themselves like they're above correction. Can't do that. So I hear what you're saying. And if you feel slighted, then hey, why do I feel slighted? Because was the person wrong? Like I told you, sometimes the sweetest treats come in a brown bag.
Brown
They come in a brown bag.
bags.
So get past the brown bag. Open the brown bag and see what's in there.
Be
Because that
bold.
might just save you going forward. Correct.
Yeah, be bold, be brave about it.
Yep.
And sometimes it's
Correct.
hard. It's hard to look in the mirror, as it were. That's the
It is.
hardest thing, Mikey. Looking in the reflection, seeing that, what, I might have done something wrong. This may not be the way to go. Taking ownership, taking accountability. We mentioned, and in this
Right.
conversation, we've had, words such as bold and audacious and ambitious. But being bold is not necessarily bad. Being audacious is not bad. And being ambitious is not bad. It is where you literally don't take time out to stop, drop, and understand, in terms of the perspective here. Who am I leading? What are we doing? What is the end goal? What is the
Correct.
end goal?
Correct. And we mentioned before, and I'll go into some more detail here. Humility is not the absence of strength. We tend to think that's what it, because a guy is quiet, he's weak. No, humility is not the absence of strength. It's a discipline to hear what you do not want to hear. That's what the humility is. It's a critical point, because, like I said, humility in the Caribbean, and this is Caribbean centric for us now, is misunderstood as softness. We say, oh, he's soft, or he's too easy, or he's a pushover. But it's the discipline of being humility, and it's discipline of self-control. It's not responding right away. It's absorbing and listening, being able to hear that your assumption was wrong, or what was being said, your method is failing, your sequence is flawed, your tone is damaging the team, not collapse the defensiveness, not be firing away. Humility doesn't weaken authority. It makes authority more accurate. A humble leader is easy to trust because the people know the truth can still reach him. And the best leaders, Judith, are the ones who combine speed with listening, conviction with reflection, and authority with respect. And that combination is very rare. That's why it matters. That's why we're having this conversation, right? Because some leaders will listen, but never decide. Others decide, but they don't listen. Strong leaders do, but don't respect. They can hear the room, but don't process what matters. They make hard calls with no logic behind it, freezing at times. So, the person who uses humility with people, they find that balance with boldness from drifting to ego and keeps humility with them close. Yeah, that's a real strong leader. Yeah, that's a really strong leader.
I like when you said before that sometimes the quiet, the still waters run deep, and the quiet, perhaps introspective leaders are mistaken or it is actually misconstrued that they are weak, but it's often the bold and loud ones. That's the one that's dominating the room. That's the one we're
But
going
they
to
don't last.
hear.
But reality catches up with them quickly, don't they? So that's what I'm saying. This leader that harnesses the humility with audaciousness and boldness is what you're looking for. Because having all the humility and the ability not to speak and command, not gonna work for us. Nope. You need to have that encompassing. You need to be humility, to be bold, not afraid to act, and have the audacity to do that. Audacity builds momentum. It's when it's tied to purpose, when it's tied to stand on accountability. Boldness for its own sake is cheap. You just can't be bold because they want to be bold. Anybody can act dramatic. Anybody can be loud. Anybody can make noise. What audacity value is when it's attached on as real, when it's a real project outcome, when standards matters, when responsibility must be carried. When leaders act boldly in the service of the project and their voice of the customer. That's when the team feels the difference. And they can see the difference. You can't bullshit your team. Sorry.
No, you
can't
can't.
BS your team.
No,
You
you
can't BS the team.
can't.
It's when leaders act boldly, like I said, in the service of their self-image, the team sees it too. And it's brittle and it's exhausting. So you're right. We can't have someone, not say we can't. It has a place for everything, but humility, boldness, audaciousness must be there, but keep the others in check. Keep your ego in check, for sure.
So you're saying there's a sweet spot. There's a sweet
Yes.
spot somewhere
Yes.
in the middle, but not everyone is able to hit it. Not everyone is cognizant or aware of the balance, of the equilibrium that is required.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And you need to do, Socrates said, right? The life not self-examined on what living, right? So you have to do it every single day. You check yourself, you pace, right? Plan, act, complete, evaluate.
Correct.
So it's a constant learning for you. It's never a single process. I learn every day, and I appreciate that. I have conversation with everybody on the site as much as I can, from the suppliers, from the guys that are doing the work. I want to get the feedback. I want to understand what's happening. That's the only way you can learn and grow as a leader, is getting that feedback.
Kaizen, continuous learning. Kaizen.
Correct. Bold leadership for me now is making the hard call when the momentum demands it. Arrogance is like acting nobody else matters and don't have the right to ask questions. A project needs courage at the top, not ego. And courage makes decisions. Ego makes the room so small that the truth can't even come in.
Can't penetrate. It can't pierce.
Can't come in. Can't penetrate.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So
Audacity says we need to move. Arrogance says do not question me.
Do not question.
One builds momentum, one builds silence.
So bold leaders do not need to dominate the room. They create confidence with everyone else within it.
Yes. A project needs backbone, not big man ego. Courage keeps the job moving. Arrogance makes good people go quiet.
Oh, wow. Mikey. Again, I want to thank you so very much for being our guest again today on Project Voices, Caribbean Perspectives on Project Leadership. You have literally opened our eyes on what audacity without arrogance looks like, and how the bold leadership without ego, how intricate it is, the fine line, and how important it is for us to manage that equilibrium for our leaders, our project professionals, as it were. At this point, I'd like to thank you again for being our guest on this podcast. Thank you so much, Mikey. And at this time, I would like to, if you are interested in any further content like this, come again, listen to us. We have much, much more. We have a lot of other Caribbean thought leaders who would be here with us. Also, join us at PMISCC. Come volunteer with us. Be a part of our community where you are surrounded with like-minded professionals. Again, thank you so much.
And please, also, you got questions? Drop them in the comments for us. We'll respond to you guys. We want to get the feedback. Drop in the comments there.
That's so true.
We'll get back to you guys because we're family.
We are. And subscribe to this channel for more.